The graphic.
Okay, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Sunday Fastball with myself, Crusty Canuck, and Adam Danny Mezei, and Chris, the Veterans Veritas, ex-major, and with Fred Stockman. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, one and all. How's everyone this week?
Well, it's been a great week. Again, I mean, what descent are we going to? How far will we descend? As actually I should say, in the COVID theater. How much more tragic is the COVID theater play going to be? Can you top the most tragic of tragedies? So that's what it is. We just sit back and we watch. Less anger, more amusement, or bemusement, as the case would be. Less frustration and rancor, and more just like, okay, head waggling, whatever. They're just that's how my week was, and in addition to other more important things besides la vida corona.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, exactly. I love that song. Well, good to see you're up in spirits, Adam. Chris, yourself, how you doing, sir?
Besides the fact that this week marked the anniversary of the Battle of Capion and Korea, and the Koreans remember and sent an envoy to the ceremony, and how many Canadian representatives showed up, official Canadian representatives from the government or the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yeah. Besides
something like that, I'm doing great.
Right on, yes. And
for all those, apropos the military, sorry, Fred, I'm just going to just come in with a comment on the majors thing. How about trying to bar the proper celebration of Anzac Day?
Yeah,
in the Antipodes.
I was mention that. That's
and erecting barriers so people can go to the dawn service. Which I don't know. There was some kind of like, I think there's some pejorative way of describing the dawn service in Aussie slang. I came across the term this week. It's like normally it would be cute, but this one, when I heard it mentioned, that I have to get the name of it, but it's like Google it's not even an Aboriginal name. Like some people called it something stupid, and it really pissed me off when I heard that because it's probably some pink-haired, triple pierced, stank gashed something or other that decided to name it that way. But anyway, go ahead, friend.
I was going to say I'm disappointed with the celebration of Anzac Day. I wanted to be down in Australia, at least for this one, because I wanted to visit some family and lay a wreath and all that. But you can't because of COVID and travel and all that crap. But that was disappointing. That one of the war memorials in Australia, one of the big ones, was gated off from everyone from seeing, which is a real shame. These guys, a lot of these Anzacs especially, there's not many left of the the original Imperial Force ones from World War II. There's not many of them left anymore. And, even the ones that are the more recent Anzacs and all that, it's just a real shame. It's kind of a kick in the teeth, if you will, for something that's, I think, so sacred. My great grandfather was, deployed 2 years in Suez, and so was my great uncle. They left behind a wife and 2 children, both of them, and had to live with that. So that's just a really rough situation, when you're away from your family and all that for several years at a time. So I just think it's disappointing the way that the Australian government did that. Oh, and then one of the senators had to basically say, I'm going to paraphrase here, but something on the lines of, how like Aboriginals and stuff are really all into the Black Lives Matter type thing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically she said that why isn't the argument that was so long ago being used today? It's like, that's a real dick move, mate. Like, there's guys who lost so many lives over in other countries, so you can, sit in your little Senate seat that means nothing. That's disappointing.
That's the thing. I'm pretty sure Australian senators are appointed too, just like Canadian senators. I think.
Sorry, that was a long rant, but
that was
just so our listeners can understand, if they're not in the know, a lot of them probably are, but what's going on for Anzac Day in the States, especially in Melbourne, the great state down there. So the dawn ceremony on Monday in Melbourne for Anzac Day is only going to be allowed 1,400 observants for the Anzac ceremony. Meanwhile, the huge Aussie football stadium, 1,500 meters to the west, or whatever, is going to be allowed to have 85,000 people celebrating a football game, an Aussie football game. So just to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Going to. And
the COVID craziness.
Is closing down. Also, we closed down basically Easter too, so that's a real. It's pretty annoying. Too. It's kind of like the Canadian government kicking that pastor out of his congregation. Real shame. It's just disappointing. The Western world has come to this. Imagine if like our grandparents were around now watching this happen. They'd be so pissed off.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Forget it. We're not doing this."
No, you guys are all gay now. Like, get out. Yeah.
They're like, you know what? Let's just stop. Let's go home. Why bother?
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
I'll go back to communist Ukraine and Russia. Thank you very much. That's what my grandpa would be saying. Like, what? Why did I leave the Russian Revolution for this stuff? I could have just stayed and fought there. Thank you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's all happened so damn quickly. I mean, relatively speaking, it's happened so quickly. Like the descent has been so precipitous, so steep that the angle has been so steep. It's just hard to really digest properly because you're in it, you're ensconced in it, you're going about your day, you're going about your activities. So you don't really think that it's. I mean, it's a little bit not perceptible, but it's just now you're on the opposite end of it, and look at the situation. Look at where we're at. Yeah.
But has it, Adam? I mean, the deconstruction of this scenario in Canada, anyway, has been happening since 1968. The stage and the meat and the potatoes and the deconstruction of this scenario to be created in the Canadian context, anyway, has been happening since 1968 under Pierre Elliott Trudeau's, structures that he put in place. Has been deconstructed to create these bedrocks, if I could call them that, to create the context to allow for this. And now the soup is there, the pot's been stirred, the crisis has been created to allow for this, is what I'm seeing unfolding in Canada, unfortunately. From my eyes and my historical perspectives, and the things that I've grown up with as a 48-year-old in Canada, growing up out west with the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Western alienation, and now living down east and living in the Laurentian, heartland. That's what I see is happening in Canada in my lifetime, anyway.
Yeah, I concur. Based on what we were studied in school and everything that we grew up with, and the liberal mantras that we were constantly, being thrown down our throats, and rightfully so. But in the same sense, it's inadvertently taken us for a toll. There's nothing wrong with being a flag waving Canadian, nothing wrong with being a flag waving American or Brit or German or French or Aussie or Kiwi. Appreciating what the West has to offer, what the West can be. We all have potential to excel, to do things greatly. And as I say in my show, we all need a chance to thrive. That thriving is being compromised. It's been compromised, I would agree with Chris there, since 1968, in the guise of everything that's supposed to be multicultural and unicorns and pixie dust and fairy farts, puppy dogs and country fairs. Oh my. Everybody keeps dressing up a shit sandwich when it comes to with a great idea. Look what we're in right now with the economy, where it's going. And now they recently just want to stop everything to help India with their problems. So that's where it's getting a little difficult to breathe. And I can just see it right now. People probably complain and they'll be labeled as racists or as bigots.
It doesn't mean anything anymore. If you get called a racist, like, why do you listen to these people? You don't want, like, if they call you, I've been called racist countless times.
I think I have too, quite a few times.
It doesn't matter. It's not. It doesn't mean anything anymore. So why bother? If they're going to call you racist anyway, so just like do what you want. Seriously, they call me a bigot all the time. I'm going to speak exactly how I want. It doesn't matter. So just the racist, the whole like multicultural bullcrap is annoying. And if multiculturalism was so great, why is there a race war every 5 seconds in America? Why? Obviously, it's not working out too well if multiculturalism is this. It's one of our strengths. AOC. Oh, it's one of our strengths. I just love multiculturalism so much. 2020 summer was terrible, man.
Here's a point that's interesting to note as well. You know, this is mentioned a lot by people eminently more in the know than I am. But you know, at least one of the things that you could have said about watch all these inverted commas, the prime minister's father, was that he was a hell of a lot more intelligent than this shitbird is. And he would, even if he were attempting to kick a boulder down the hill that would eventually end up accelerating as it is right now, it's unstoppable. At least it felt like a suppository. I mean, because everybody likes it. You know, you're only gay if you take it, not if you give it. I'm just kidding. But like it felt like a suppository. It didn't feel like you were being sodomized. Something pleasurable, you know. Pick your pleasure, dudes. Okay, I'm not here to judge. Okay, but it felt like it felt like it was something that was, dare I say, good for you. And this is the brazenness, the brashness of the lies and the corruption out there. It's right there. It's right in the frame. It's right in your face. And we can talk about specific examples, but it's right there. Just the perfidy. That's a good word. The perfidy is right there. And it's enraging because they've built an electoral system. They've gamed a system in this country, at least, with the large clusters of populations where you have paper Canadians and new Canadians, where they're able to continue in a first past the post system, ensure the repeated election of said incompetence, said trust fund, you know, kids, said virtue hires, all that stuff. So at least under PET's time, it felt like, oh, okay, you have to use your brain a little bit. Now, with respect to Castro's kid, it's a very dumbed down approach. I mean, politics used to be such a clever game. Now it's the lowest common denominator. I mean, it had always been show business for ugly people. Now it's show business for ugly dumb fucks. And so I mean, celebrities in general are dumb fucks. It's rare that you get a smart celebrity or an actor. But it's just, so now it's brazen, and then we've actually accepted it. As the generations pass, we get further and further away from the wise source, and that which we admired about generations of yore that had a degree of wisdom, a store of hallowed wisdom. As the generations pass, it's like Chinese telephone. I'm going to use all the non-PC words tonight because I'm in that kind of fucking mood. But we've just had it just goes all the way down the line, and it gets dumber and dumber. And it's just like the smart people, like, who are you going to breed with? You have to really do some serious selection. Otherwise, you're just going to, you know, like I know Freddie's into this, but like this is important for Fred. Like, who are you going to breed with, right? You got to really pick them right. So anyway, take it away.
I choose Madam Palm and her 5 daughters because that's the safest bet right now.
Oh, I got you. The 5-knuckle shuffle?
Yep, Madam Palm and her 5 daughters. I mean, that's the safest choice.
Yeah. Dinner for one?
Yeah, dinner for one.
Fair enough. Well, we got a question here.
Beef stroking off. Yeah.
Yep.
Whipping your Skippy. From Max Peach, thoughts on the Canadian Armed Forces scandal? I think we probably start off with Chris on that one.
We'll give it to the military people. Yeah.
Well, I got to be a little bit careful on this one because I still know some people that are serving.
So use like pet names like Griselda and Ingrid and Engelbert and Eugene
And Shotzi. Shotzi. Yeah.
Well,
Shotzi.
let me just start that when General Vance was in and he first announced Op Honor, which I don't know who, and Op Honor, just for those who don't know, was the operation. So, operation, this is how important it was. We have to announce an operation to stop sexual misconduct in the military. So, his first announcement was to, as Chief of Defense Staff, was to announce Operation Honor. So I'm getting released from the military at this time. It's official. I've actually got my notification that yes, this is going to happen. And I'm in my office and I'm running this project where I'm supposed to be sorting out all the Air Force museums around in Canada, all the official Air Force museums. And I'm ticking away and I'm on the phone and I'm doing this call with the museum out in Halifax. And the flash comes up with what's called a CAN 4 Gen. So, a standing order, the Canadian Forces General Orders for Operation Honor. And I read it. So first of all, Operation Honor, hence known Op Honor.
Yeah.
So I'm reading this, and right away, the first thing that comes into my head is who was sitting in that room when they're discussing this operation and didn't speak up to say, Op Honor. Why are we calling it Op Honor? Like Hop Honor, Op Honor, or Hop Honor? Like, hello, people. First of all, why is it a priority to create an operation for this? Second, why are we calling it Op Honor? But I'll stop there. Because it's just lunacy. It's just lunacy that this was even. It's like systemic racism, hunting down systemic racism in the government right now. Like this was a lunacy from day one to even create an operation to lunacy. So then I'll step forward to now what's come out this week about this major. I can't remember her name right now, and I'm sorry that I don't.
Kelly Brennan.
To Kelly Brennan coming out and saying, oh yeah, I have 2 kids with him, and oh yeah, he shut me down and told me, oh yeah, I shouldn't, I own the CFNIS, the military police, and yeah, you can't talk to them and don't tell them that I have 2 kids. Well, I am sorry, but with all due respect, she is playing both sides of the fence because it's not like she was a private. It's not like she was brand new, just joined the military and didn't know better. Right? Did you see where I'm going with this, everybody that's listening?
Exactly.
She's a responsible adult. She's been in the military long enough. Yes, she's dating a senior officer, and yes, he's the top fucking dog in the military. But I am sorry, you are a responsible adult. You're a responsible human being. You are a senior officer. You know what you are doing, and it is your choice to be in a relationship with another adult human being
who was married at the time,
who is married, etc., etc. So this is all smoke and mirrors with this current thing with her. I don't know any of the details about it. I don't know her. I don't know General Vance. I haven't read anything about it. I'm just looking at it on its face, and it doesn't pass, this particular scenario between this Major Brennan and General Vance doesn't pass the smell test. And then I just want to make one more point about this current shit show of what's going on in D&D. This is what happens in general when the PMO is running everything. Okay, in the government. And when you have a defense minister who is stolen valor and who Well,
Raghead.
that too.
Raghead.
But
Yeah.
stolen valor. Okay, so this defense minister was a reservist and a colonel who served under General Vance at some point, like in chain of command or on different operations. So he's not a minister. He is a former serving colonel, right? So there's lines crossed there. He doesn't know where he stands. And then you've got a PMO's office who is telling everybody what to, like the lines of command and communication and who's in charge in this government. If this current, and then back it up even to Admiral Norman and what happened with him getting thrown on the bus. If this whole debacle in D&D and Canadian Armed Forces right now doesn't demonstrate the complete lack of a proper functioning government in this country right now, then I don't know what does.
Well, in that case, using the incestuous analogy, they're literally motherfuckers.
They're motherfuckers. Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Because they're fucking their mother or sister, brother, whatever the case may be. But I think in this case, they're motherfuckers because it's like the chain of command. You get it?
It's horrible.
Yeah, calm down, Adam.
Well, in my last episode, I kind of defended her. I defended the women coming forward, and I put a plea out there in my episode saying, if anybody wants to talk, let me know. Tell me the side, because we're not really seeing all sides of every story. Now, being in that chain of command, what he did is wrong. It is.
Once, but if he has 2 kids with her, I could accept it on the once. You have 2 kids. There's no exculpatory information.
Like 2 consenting adults, you nailed it, Chris. Yeah, 2 consenting adults, go for it. Whatever. I don't care if you're a major or a captain, or if it's a captain and private, fine. If they're 2 consenting adults and they both know what they're doing, fine. But if one of them's married or both married and they're screwing around like that, and then they start throwing each other in the bus, and then one person keeps quiet, and then all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork later, it's like, okay, what's there to gain? Like, we were all given the ethics briefing from the time we were recruits until the time we left the services. Always given the ethics briefing and ethos and morals and what have you. And yet we're not seeing that example. We are not seeing that example. It doesn't matter if it comes from a buck private or the great overseer of the Canadian military universe as we know it. We're not seeing it. And especially the government officials that are backing it up. And the Bloc and the Liberals kiboshed the investigation. While they threw Norman under the bus for finding a really bad procurement ideal, right? Saying, look, this isn't fair. This is going to cost us money later on down the road. To throwing him under the bus, to giving Mr. Vance a $50,000 increase. Oh, thanks for coming out. Well done. Good effort here. Here's some hush money. Go about your business. Right? And of course, Mr. Sajan, he couldn't lead a shit to a toilet as far as I'm concerned. Because every time I heard that man speak, he was always talking about race or relations, not talking about proper leadership and looking after procuring our men and women properly. So,
and let's not forget that on Operation Medusa, there was some heavy casualties, and
I know we buried some of those lads.
Yeah, and it was because of Sajing.
Oh yes, he spearheaded the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about
that. To quote Mike Myers, right. Fuck. Well, that's the kind of a somber reality we all live in here. The thing is, too, it's adding more to the brownie points of a possible election as too, gentlemen. So it's something to think about. I would hope the voter base would look at that for what it is, but no, they're not going to look at that because based on the last budget or the half-assed 739-page doctrine that outlines how the federal government's going to spend and spend and spend, doesn't sound like a budget to me. I don't know. Adam, what do you think?
I just think the way that we're educating the kids today in the institutions is that money grows on trees. There's always going to be an LC, a line of credit that you're going to be able to avail yourself of. If you go tits up, someone's going to be able to bail you out. The government's going to come in and save the day with some kind of pogey, sort of, monthly stipend or what have you. And I think that just fiscal responsibility, again, a colleague of mine the other day who watches some of my fast thoughts. That's right. The major goes edumacating 1 and 1 equals 3 in the comments. So he said to me, like almost like coyly, I thought it was kind of cute, but it sort of peed me off because the guy's got some involvements with some pretty interesting legal things that are going on in Canada. I'll explain in just a moment. So he goes, have you ever heard of modern monetary theory? Oh, you mean like redistribution on crack, you mean? And I was like, he was trying to like, it's the second time in the last little while that somebody's tried to sell me on modern monetary theory. And I keep telling people like, you can take that chin music and you could return to sender. I'm a fiscal conservative. You can kiss my purple butt.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in hearing what you have to say about that. And especially when it's white kids that are telling me that. It's not like some black kid or some whatever they call it today, you know. It's so funny because if in Slavic languages the C is a ts, not a k sound. So if you say BIPOC, it's put, or POC, it's putz. Get it? Putz, not poke. Not BIPOC, BIPOC, putz.
BIPOC?
Yeah. So they're so if it's not some putz. I'm just going to use my own terminology. What the fuck? I do it all the time. It's not some POC that's telling some PC POS. Sorry, it's not some POS that's telling me about modern monetary theory. It's some white kid. Now, this particular person that told me is as an acting colleague, and is kind of like a moonlighting lawyer who's got an actual LLB. Excuse me, I meant to say, and who works in a law firm, and he goes through Aboriginal restitution claims cases that are, I don't know, either spuriously fired or on backlog or whatever. And so, you know, it's like he's the full gamut. Like he's got the Asian girlfriend. He's traveled around the world. The guy's like 6'4", built like a brick shit house, you know, born in Canada, speaks both of our national languages fluently, but is like super, super into the PC, all the slogans, all the stuff. Like he's really into it, you know? So people like that, there's a plurality of people like that, especially in Ontario and Quebec, and it's hard to unseat those people. They're going to continue to vote in all of those different demagogues that want all that new modern monetary theory, Great Reset, yada, 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 you know, World Economic Forum, WEF horse crap. We're not going to be able to get around those types of people, even though we have smart people that understand how to run a business in Alberta and Saskatchewan. We're never just going to be able to leapfrog over that. It's going to be those people. And it's like, so he'll come to me with those little zingers, and I'll come back to him and I'll give him like a rebuttal, and that's the end of the conversation. In other words, he reads me his riot act. He does a data dump of verbal diarrhea on like some kind of electronic sort of social platform, and then I come back with my responses, completely polite, no F, S, and C words, the 4, 5, 7 letter ones ending in ED and ING. Like I come back to him with the good comments, and that's the end of the conversation. He doesn't want to, because it didn't fit into the box, right, Sarge? Yeah. It didn't fit into the box. It does not compute. HAL 9000 is malfunctioning, and Keir Delay is floating throughout the whatever the name of the ship was. So you know, it's enraging, because if they don't get what they want, then and I'll just give you another concrete example. If they don't get what they want, then they revert to cursing. And then if cursing doesn't work, then they get violent if it's an in-person interaction. Dr. Saad, God Saad, was recently I'm sure you guys checked it out. You know Dr. Saad. He's got the sort of the cute zingers against
the Godfather. Exactly.
Yeah. You know, LeBron James, whatever. And he was coming because, you know, LeBron was coming up and doxing was doxing individuals that were involved in a law enforcement situation. I don't know how he got a hold of it. Probably hired some private dicks, you know, to go and find all the information. And Dr. Saad came back with like a nice sort of like, you know, Gatling gun litany of tweets like Dr. Saad does. And some kids, I guess they were just like African American kids or whatever. Some kids that are on the pardon.
Well, African American is stupid. They're blacks. They're not really
the blacks, the POCs, the putzes, whatever. The whole
African and they're white. So like, you know,
they're the wealthiest subculture of black people on the face of the big blue ball. They're multiples more wealthy than even some white people in the United States. Let's not even go there. and they were calling him all kinds of epithets. And Dr. Sad said, I can't even believe these people. Forget about if they don't like me, if they don't agree with me. I'm triple their age. I could be like their grandfather. And also I'm a university professor, and he wasn't divulging what they were saying, but I can just imagine the things they were telling him, either go die, or like, we're going to come over and chop your dick off, or like some stupid things, or like go, like you should, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate, but I'm sure it was disgusting. He woke up to like a whole morning of tweet vitriol. And these are the types of people that we're dealing with. And these are the people that can actually decide and tilt elections, administrations. These are the people that these are our interlocutors. These are our counterparts. It's astonishing. And here we are, adhering to the sacrosanct idea of freedom of expression. Here we are, like, you have a right to profess the most vile, disgusting opinions, and it's going to be our right to protect your right to say so. And these people don't play by the same rules. Like, how much worse does it get? It gets a lot worse, just to answer. But I mean, how quickly? That's another question that's up for grabs. But that's who we're dealing with. And I'm working with people like this, and I want to like them. Like, I really want to be your friend. But you say the most asinine things that if I had a family, you would actually be voting in policies that would be to the detriment of my blood and my kin and my kith. And I don't know if I could deal with that, because you're literally coming at me with a hatchet, or you're coming at me with a pistol, and you're not actually pulling the trigger literally, but you're kind of pulling the trigger, So I don't know how to respond to people these days. And generally my response is just to cut them right out of the picture, like a cancer. I just cut them out like a tumor, even though I know it's detrimental maybe to my career or professional aspirations. I can't have people like that in my circle.
It brings you down. It brings you down sometimes too. That's the thing. Even Fred and I had this conversation before a couple times in the show. When you're surrounded by these ignoramuses, it doesn't matter if they have a degree, or it doesn't matter if they're saturated in a political situation. Their worldview is so effing skewed. It's uncanny, because they spend all this time going to university or to a college to get this education, to get this great degree, and yet they don't have the basic humility to understand that, maybe I'm wrong. There you go, right? It's not like they took STEM and they become chemical engineers, or they become mathematicians. They become doctors or lawyers, okay, or they become post-secondary conglomerates themselves. They train to be teachers or professors, and they're constantly regurgitating this garbage over and over again. When I watched that footage of what happened in Ohio with that police officer, I've been in situations where I've had to react quickly to do something. Okay, now maybe 4 rounds might have been overkill, but he was well on the right, because he was defending that girl's life. Okay, 2 black girls, argument, tussle, what have you. One was going to visually going to stab her. He reacted promptly.
Where do you place the bullets in a pattern like that?
My training was center of mass.
Center body mass?
Center of body mass. So
like a star pattern?
Center of mass, he reacted accordingly.
Yeah.
Center of mass. So whether she was to his side, or he had whatever where he was standing, center of mass, as far as I understand. Okay. Now I watched actually Bill Maher on Friday. Okay, I watch Bill Maher sometimes. I like his humor once in a while. And he actually stood up for the cop and said, "Look, these guys are trained to do things, and they don't get the range time as they should." And I've talked with Mounties about range time when they have to go out and shoot. Some of them are lucky to get maybe once a year. You should be doing at least once a month to go out, fire 10, 20 rounds just to keep your skill up. Now, if he uses taser, I guess he could have, but you have to be at a certain range to use that taser as well. Can't just lickety split. Oh, maybe he should have just shot her in the leg. Well, sometimes you got to react quickly based on your instincts. That's the thing. So I'm not defending anyone dying, but I think the cop did his job. Fred,
you can't shoot someone in the leg. That's all movie shit. Like, honestly, there was Stephen Crowder was actually talking about this. I can't find the article, but there was a town in America called I forget the name of the town, but it was in Delaware, and I believe it was one of Joe Biden's, like, in his district or whatever.
Joe Biden.
Hey,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, Joe Biden, who called the guy fat and just randomly. What was the thing? Yeah, so there's this town where these cops were trained to shoot people's limbs instead of the center of the body. Yeah, that town got nicknamed John Waynesville because it was just too impossible to like get a cop there, and eventually they turned the policy around. So it's unrealistic. But anyway, what was the thing? Yeah, so this is so stupid. If you don't want to get shot by the police, maybe you shouldn't you shouldn't commit crimes. You shouldn't be like mid-crime, like hurling a knife at someone. You know, I'd be shot if I was doing that and the cop was right there, and deservingly too. You know, that's illegal.
Well, yeah, she attempted to kill her friend or her roommate, or I think it was a foster situation. She attempted to kill her, and that cop acted promptly. And then when you get these big wigs like, LeBron James trying to make it, oh, it's a racial thing. Oh, yeah, we're going to dox him. It's like, well, what are you doing? Like what kind of example are you setting by doing that?
It was a mistake, Crusty. It was a mistake. We should make a way when people vote know how government works. We have too many idiots contributing to the dialogue in our society that don't understand politics. They don't understand how government works. They don't understand policing. They don't understand law enforcement whatsoever. They don't understand the justice system. And so they make absolutely ignorant comments like LeBron James did. It was a week or so ago. I forget. All these shootings are blending together. I'm sorry. But you make ignorant comments like that when you do not understand what you are talking about. You should not be able to vote if you do not understand how the judicial system works and policing works. You just shouldn't. So I think Socrates was right when he said that intellectuals should vote, not the mass public. Democracy has failed us. We should try something new. I argue that we make a system where people have to take a test before to know that if they actually know how the government works. If you get the test right, you can vote. I don't care what age you are. If you're 16 and you can pass it, whatever, I'll take it. But if you can pass that test, you can vote. That's how I see it. But whatever.
Well, I would agree with you on one point, Fred. Like you need to have some sort of intellectual capacity, but I think this whole education thing nowadays, especially in Canada, we got 50% of this country has advanced degrees in Canada.
Nothing.
Right? And what does that mean?
Absolutely nothing.
So degree does not equal intelligence.
Yeah.
Passing a test does not equal intellectual capacity, critical thinking.
Someone knows how the system works, though, because we have people that don't understand how our government works, both in Canada, America, Australia, whatever. They don't understand how it works.
I agree with you 100%. So what I'm an advocate about is some service. Get out there and do some service.
Yeah.
Toil, some blood, sweat, and tears somehow, whatever that service is, to actually have some sweat on your brow and some freaking calluses on your hands of some sort of what the system is, to understand how the system works. Because in my humble opinion, that's the only way how you know how a system works, is by actually working in it somehow. And I would be so bold as to go back to the framers of the U.S. Constitution of being a landowner, if I could be so brazen. I mean, that was the nuts. You have to be a landowner to vote. Why? Because if you're a landowner, you have responsibility to take care of your land. So throwing responsibility in there somehow into the vote, being a responsible citizen somehow before you vote, demonstrating responsibility somehow. Hey, I can't think of that off of the top of my head right now, a reasonable way how to demonstrate responsibility before voting or partaking in the system. So I'm with you, demonstrating, understanding of the system, responsibility within the system, and then also having some sort of service into that system and having worked in that system to understand how it works, Fred. But, I'm with you because it's just, right, you're 18 and you get to vote. Great. Well, that doesn't mean anything.
Here's another variation of what you just said, Major. What if the prerequisite is you have to have a certain number of children in order to vote, in which case you would have unless people had some sort of issues with sort of actually creating children. But let's just say you have to have a requisite number in your family to ensure that you're doing things that are in the long-term interests of your family. And of course, that would bring up the problem of, let's say, Muslim families that have like massive broods, or other sort of ethnicities that have massive broods. Well, it would just spur people that are sort of old stock Canadians to want to have more kids. That's it. Instead of sort of relying on the sort of the convenience of the age, which is you want to have as little inconvenience and bother and whatever is possible. The sort of a la carte child rearing. So like it's like back in the day, used to have to be a landowner of some kind. Used to have to be like landed gentry, part of. I'm not saying everything that was the Chateau Clique, or I know the Sarge doesn't really like this, or the family compact, but at least you had to be part of a certain sort of class of individuals. But maybe we can make the determine. You have a certain number of kids, and this way you're not going to fuck up the future for your kids.
I would prefer the recall. But then again, we don't have, like in our parliamentary system, we don't have politicians represent the constituents as they should. That's a big staunch thing. And I'm happy that the Alberta government has said, okay, we're going to put this recall motion in too. But now out here, the NDP aficionados and all supporters are creaming their jeans because of Kennedy's F-ups and what have you. And of course, the Motley Notleys and the horse-faced liars are rallying about, oh, we've raised so much money to get another election if need be. And if they were true leaders the way they say they were, they'd be giving that money to the less fortunate in this province that's been stung by the COVID pandemic, i.e. the restaurants and businesses that have been closed, that they ever so affectionately say they stand behind. Yet they've stood by Kenny when it comes to increasing the lockdowns and demanding more lockdowns, while they gallivant around the province calling everyone racist.
We don't even know the true extent of how much havoc has been wreaked on small and medium-sized enterprise. We only know of certain stories of people that are vocal about it, and there are still, again, I would come to the word of a plurality. There's a plurality of small business owners that are hopeful that at some stage that there's going to be some kind of a much more considerable bailout by the government than has heretofore been proffered by the government. And some of those small business owners somehow sort of bought into the program, that they thought that the lockdown was an actual effective prophylactic to try to arrest the spread of La Vida Corona. So the truth is, we don't even know yet how bad it's going to be. And I think once we get the full picture of just how horrendous the economy is, that's not being pumped up by printed cash and inflationary monetary policy. Oh my gosh, who knows what's going to happen on the streets? Prices will rise. We know the history of countries that have suffered from crippling inflation. I mean, there's many examples, and not
Venezuela for starters. Yeah.
But I mean, even on the other continent, even New Zealand, I think in the 80s had gone completely economically basket case. You can look at New Zealand's economy.
Robert Muldoon.
Muldoon, right.
Yeah.
Under Muldoon, New Zealand's economy went completely bust, and they had to sort of reform. I mean, luckily for them, they were small enough of a population, at sort of 3 to 5 million people, that they could boogie on a dime. But it's not going to look pretty when it becomes. I mean, it's already dog eat dog, especially in the big town. I mean, it's going to get dog eat dog when people have to start. It's going to get. I mean, people are mean. I mean, we already have the snitch thing, which is pretty entrenched. I mean, that's just the snitch thing is an outgrowth of people can't stand each other. So, I mean, when it starts coming down to brass tacks and dollars and cents and what have you, and possessions and things, I think it's going to get much worse. And you'll see it, of course, here at ground zero, here in the big cities like the Torontos, the Montreals, the Vancouvers, where things cost so much money, you start to see it a lot more. I mean, I don't know when we're going to stop living the life of Riley. I don't know when it's going to stop, but it has to stop sometime. It just can't keep on printing, and it doesn't. And it's got to have some kind of there's got to be some kind of a weak link where the whole thing just collapses.
Well, we're not getting a return for our investments. If they keep bailing all these little companies and helping this country and that country, what kind of return is going to come back? Now, the Conservatives and other Canadians, other Canadian taxpayers have made this very vocal towards the Liberal government back in 2015 and 2016. And yet they kept saying, oh, Harper's fault. It's like, well, when I look at what Stephen Harper did, he might have been shady in some deals. But when we had that big recession in 2008, people were still working, thankfully. And there are still people out there that can go home and pay their decent mortgage rate without the inflatable egos and the philandering that went on behind bankers' closed doors. Not so much like it happened in the United States, but up here, people still had their homes. And yeah, there was a few losses, but not to the scale of what it was in the US and in parts of Britain. Like that was just wow. Like we were that close to another Great Depression because of these decisions. And luckily, there were some prime ministers that stepped up and said, okay, look, we're going to help you out, but quote unquote, your fuckers are going to pay us back. And GM did pay back, the federal government. But now the way things are working now, they want to keep spending money and spend and print it, yet not worry about the inflation that's going to happen. I think it's pretty soon, and it's fucking scary.
And to your point, Sarge, let's just say that, let us presume a priori that would be an acceptable way of trying to stimulate the economy in a situation where the pandemic or a global pandemic has hammered it to the extent that it has. A priori, we accept that is doable. A country cannot live by circus alone. Like you cannot not have a core narrative, not narrative in the positive sense, not in the bullshit media party sense. You need to have a core foundation. And again, to Major's point about commemorating the battle in the Korean War from 50 to 53, you need to have a core story upon which all of that other, we'll call it casuistry, all of that sort of all of that sorcery, the monetary sorcery. I do this with my hands. All that stuff can take place, but it has to be on a foundation of where we come from, what we did, where we're going, what we're capable of. That is completely just being frittered away to the point that the government officials are not, and they're not even sending like a lower level staffer. They're not even sending like a subordinate. They're not even sending like a representative. I get it. You don't want to send the minister. It looks a little bit unkosher. So you send somebody that's in the department. I mean, no attempt at all. It's just like, we're not going to do this. And like the prime minister's father, it's like, just watch me, right? Remember that outside the house? Just watch me. Mr. Trudeau, you don't presume to close down all of Quebec society. You don't presume to declare the War Measures Act, do you? Just watch me. And then he walks away with that little sort of, that pirouette thing that he does.
And he did.
No, there's a lot of bleeding hearts in Canada.
That's right. He said that too. Of course.
There's a lot of bleeding hearts, and they don't want to see blood in the streets. Just watch me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a comment here from none other than V Cubed, the Major Chris Centric, is a Greek style austerity or World Economic Forum International Monetary Fund Great Reset. It's going to be either or as the offer. It's going to be either or as the offer. What do you think? The young folk are going to choose. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Well, you were talking and because Crusty was talking about with the 2008 bubble. And Canada weathered that because we did have good economic policy and we did have a good housing structure, and our banking structure was set up at that point to be able to handle that particular bubble well. Right now, forget about the crisis. There's all kinds of bubbles that are brewing, and now this particular crisis, this particular budget that just passed, that's going to accumulate as much debt and deficit as all the other prime ministers combined in history, which is just and we're not even at war, which is just insane.
Yep.
And it's all been telegraphed as the Great Reset. It's not conspiratorial. Trudeau's been talking about it. Chrystia Freeland's been talking about it now. So what I am saying by this is this is all being set up either by design or by sheer stupidity to create a Great Reset. Whatever the hell that's going to be, we're not quite sure yet. The WF has talked about it. So what I am saying by that comment, I know, again, I'm dyslexic. I'm not a good typer, and I'm not good at grammar. So there is with this budget, we're going to end up coming down the pipe with all the economic indicators under the way economics work right now anyway in the world, traditional macroeconomics. we're heading for Greek style austerity, 2012, 13 in the Euro economy, right? Where the European Union had to bail out Greece, and they were all fighting. Everybody remember that at all anywhere in the world, right?
And Cyprus, yeah.
And Cyprus, and and Italy, and Portugal, and Spain,
Yeah.
and
I think Ireland felt that too.
And Ireland too. We're heading for that, folks. Or it's going to be we're going to get to Greek style austerity, and it's going to be the offer. This is what I'm thinking is coming down the pipe. It's going to be, all right, Canada, total austerity, 20, 30 years to sort out your economy because of all this debt and your deficits and everything. Austerity to sort it out the traditional way, and I'm using air quotes for the podcast version, right? It's going to be austerity, or the WEF and the IMF will here's the Great Reset, and here's some sort of other offer that we'll give you, and you'll own nothing, and this is the way the economy is going to work, and this is what we're going to do, and you'll own nothing, but here you go, we'll take care of all these problems for you. Here's the solution from us. What do if those are the two offers, austerity or this Great Reset, whatever it's going to look like, which one do you think the young folks are going to take?
They're going to take the comfort, of course. They're going to take the comfort, which is the easy way out. Oh, UBI. Oh, I'll get another handout. Oh, great. And then our pensions get screwed. So
everything's screwed. There won't be any pensions. Those will all get rolled into the Great Reset too, right? As part of the.
So therefore, we will have to still go and try to work for our meager pennies. The old adage that the socialists like to say, we pretend to work for you and you pretend to pay us. Right? So it's turning into a shit show.
One thing that is
Arthur, World War III is coming.
It's here, Colin. It's here, Colin.
One thing for sure, again, a truism that holds fast throughout the generations. If you're not willing to suffer a little bit today, you're going to suffer a hell of a lot tomorrow. If you can't stomach a little bit of bitterness today, if you can't digest or chew on a bit of bitterness now, oh my goodness, is it going to come raining down on you? Mm-hmm. And it's just, but you see it in everything. Everything's so instantaneous. It just, I mean, we lambaste the millennials all the time, but just like young people in general, just everything has to be instant. Everything has to be quick. Everything has to be fast. It's not working out a certain way. Like here, I'll give you an example. I recently got into, I'll give you a quick little anecdote. It's kind of interesting. It's not related to economics, but it's just related to the behavior. So a friend of mine, I probably should be at some stage. I should probably become a casting agent myself because I'm really good at finding the talents and assigning people to various jobs. So a colleague of mine, let's see if I can do it without getting too specific. A colleague of mine, I got him a job and he became a spokesperson for a Canadian, it was a client of a company. He was the guy. I thought he would be great for it. It was a comedic role. It was perfect. I'll show you guys once we go offline. And I cross-posted it using, a reposting app off of Instagram. And I promptly received a direct message from the production company said, it's the first time it's ever happened to me. And I repost people's stuff all the time, especially if it's good material. But basically the message was, you're violating our copyright. Nobody authorized you to actually repost this. And how did you get the full video? And take it down immediately, or we're going to report you. No hello, no like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. You probably meant really well. We're not really comfortable having our IP out there. Totally cool. Would it be okay if you just pull it down? You can make a link. We can whatever. You can repost our story, like some kind of a compromise position. They went right for the jugular. Like, and I got my goat up. I'm like, nobody talks to me like that the first time. Like, okay, it makes it sound like I'm such a macho man, but I'm just saying, you didn't even attempt to speak properly. You went right for the jugular. You went right. That's what I want to say. You went right for you went right for the lawyering up. You went right for the lawyering up. You went right for the forget about the you didn't even tickle me. You just rammed it right in there, right? So it's just like and I was like, you know what, like, man, this is the generation. It's just like, you don't get what you want, lawyer up, call some line, get some cop to come, get get somebody to take care of this. I can't deal with this. There's some mechanism in the social app for you to be censured or for you to be banned. And eventually they sent me like a whole ream of stuff. I didn't take it down. They said, we're reporting you to for copyright infringement. They ended up pulling it down. Instagram ended up pulling it down. But I was like, I was ready to play that game. I was ready to take it to the end. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. You want to go at it? You want to go Dukes up? Let's go Dukes up. I can do that, you know? And then I was just like, I wanted to kind of like, and I even explained them without being such a tough guy about it. I was like, you guys went straight for the jugular. You could have talked to me very nice. I would have pulled it down, no problem. All I wanted to do was to give my colleague a little bit more exposure. It was a great spot. It was so funny. It was great. You guys were great. The client was great. Everything was fantastic. And I asked my friend, I go, are they kids? I go, is the production company kids? He goes, bunch of kids. I go, there you go. I got my answer right there. I see the reason why. Lawyer up, lawyer up, lawyer up. It's sickening. It's sickening. You can't run a society like that. Because in the old days, the way we used to do it is if stuff's not working out, maybe you got a little bit barrel chested, but that handled a lot of problems. You know, like if you were in the bar and somebody was mouthing off or, you know, a little knuckle sandwich, you know, or something, just a little something, and take a bottle and break it over the guy's head, but just a little get you know, barrel line up, you know, Major knows what I'm talking about. Line up to the guy a little bit, and that's it. End of story. Calm down, everybody. Calm down. Okay. Maybe even take it outside and bloody himself a little bit, but at least it would have been solved. Now it's the cops coming in. Everything's got to be involved, law enforcement, everything like that. Everybody's the same way. It's kind of
Oh, the camera just went out, guys. Sorry about
okay.
that.
All right,
I'll sort it out. Just keep going, keep talking there.
Max Peach writes here. He goes, he used no lube, exactly, and I like it lubed up. You know, personally, I want to do that. So anyway, Major, what do you think about that? Oh, Major can't hear. Freddie,
I can hear. Yeah.
what do you think about that?
There we go.
I think I'm sorry you guys have to deal with my generation. Really, you know, there's too many like intersectional. What's it called? You know, woke people in my age group. So I'm sorry you guys have to deal with us. So on behalf of Gen Z, I apologize, but I don't know. It's disappointing that kids in my generation can't just deal with stuff. You know, just be adults about things. Millennials aren't great either. So I mean, I don't really want to hear it from any of them, but you know, whatever.
See, Fred, I don't know. I find the Zetters, and somebody's mic's cracking pretty bad there. I don't know, it might be Crusty. Fred, I find that Gen Zenners are a little bit more pragmatic. So I don't know if that's because you're the follow-on from the millennials, and you kind of maybe want to shed that stuff a little bit more, and that kind of you want to deal with things a little bit more up front. Do you find that maybe, or?
Some of us. I think I mean, maybe it's just because I was just in high school, but I remember a lot of really, really, really woke people. Like, I was not a fan of being in school. Like, it was just the worst. Like, you know, the pink-haired, like, feminist with the, you know, dressing in kind of like skanky clothing, and she's like, "Don't look at me." Yeah. It's like, God damn it! You why can't I look at you? You pink
I want to be looked at. Exactly.
Yeah. Your tits are hanging out. Yeah.
Exactly. You got like cat ears on, and you're walking through the hallway like an absolute. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that'll like get me in too much trouble.
No, drop a C-bomb. It's encouraged.
No.
I'm not gonna. I encourage it. Do it.
Hey, when I say sexist things about women, okay, because I do, I'm a bit of a misogynist in that regard. Okay,
No.
I don't go for the C word. Okay, I basically say, get back in the kitchen, love, because that's how you got to really do it. That makes them way more angry. Now,
Like me a sandwich?
I'm just disappointed to society. I got banned from Twitter for 12 hours yesterday, which is kind of hilarious because I said there was two genders. So I mean,
Sacrilege.
Disappointed. I attacked the what is it? The cow that you can't eat. What is it? Sacred cattle. I'm attacking all the sacred cattle. That's why they keep banning me off all the social media. So.
Okay, hold on, Fred. I'm surprised. You mean there's not two sexes?
No,
I
there's
had
76 of them, I believe.
some LGBT activist. I'm not going to say my Twitter because I have like multiple accounts with different names. Like I have like 3 or 4 accounts with different like really white boy names. And yes, and some of them are kind of like trolly ones, and some of them are just like serious. But I was debating with this like I guess a Gen Zeta like myself. He's a bit younger than me. He was like 15. Which I don't think you should have a Twitter account if you're under the age of 17. That's stupid. But anyway, I was having a chat with him, and he basically said that it's possible. It's scientifically possible to change genders, and I'm like, no, it's not. Your chromosomes in your body don't change as you when you chop off your penis. Like it doesn't change at all. And I guess
Maybe
I got
they
banned.
maybe they do if you get the vaccine.
Yeah, the vaccine. You can't speak about that because Bill Gates says it's basically like Holocaust denial. Hi guys, I'm Bill Gates. I made this vaccine, and I think you guys should all take it. That guy's the devil. Oh my god! You know he helped get Jacinda Ardern elected, and he actually Jacinda Ardern worked for Bill Gates and Microsoft, and she just somehow happened to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Like it just starts out in Microsoft, ends up as a Prime Minister of a country that's basically pushing all this New World Order stuff. Definitely not a coincidence at all.
No, not at all. What about our beloved Prime Minister? I'm sure he got no donations from. Well, hold on. The date last May 1st, when he came out to do his order in council to take away our guns, which marked the first day of official communism in Canada. You know who he met with the day before?
Who did he meet with?
Bill and Melinda Gates, and had a huge meeting with them.
Ooh, interesting. You know,
They're
Bill Gates.
the recipients of Canadian tax dollars, the same as the Clinton Foundation and the Tides, or what they call the Make Way Foundation route too. The American Democratic conglomerate that wants to harness Canadian fuel. Now, they sit there and say oil is bad and oil is terrible, but they don't mind getting their hands into Canadian bitumen, right? So that's the thing.
Well, that's why China owns 50% of the Fort McMurray oil sands now.
You know, somehow I think that being in opposition, being on this side of the aisle, fuels us. It makes us sharper. It makes us more resolute and determined to achieve what we consider to be that which is right and just. And I think if we were in power, would we be as enterprising and as sharp as we are? Because we're pretty damn sharp now. And I just think that it sucks to be in opposition and to not be making the decisions and making the calls. But opposition is also a incubating time, a time for strategizing. And I know it sucks to be constantly giving it. We're constantly taking it in the way we don't want to take it. We're constantly getting the short end. But I can't help but think that over these months and years now, we've become so much better than we were prior to 2015. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would concur. There's like to say there's a more of an awakening. I'm not going to use the word woke because to me that's just an excuse. But especially since I left the service, and you get to really see the brass tacks of how a lot of these leaders operate and the orders that they're given from the higher echelon, and that's civilian, not the military brass. And especially the experiences I had trying to get adequate employment outside of that military bubble. The contrast now people treat each other and act and carry on. It's like tipping toe on eggshells all the effing time. And for what? You know, it's like, how much comfort do you need? How much consultation do you need? How much consoling do you need? I can understand if someone's going through a hard time and you do your best to help that individual out. But if you're constantly have to walk around on tiptoes because someone might be offended, then someone hasn't grown up. Someone hasn't been raised with any kind of scruples other than here's your trophy for showing up. Here's your A for making a good effort. And it's just, no. I think God saw it coddling of the Western mind. Was that Gad Saad or was that Jonathan Haidt? I forget.
Jonathan Haidt, I believe.
Yeah. So needless to say, all these superior intellects that are actually weighing in on reality, they're basically telling the rest of us, yeah, everything's fine. It's just the rest of this conglomerate is just screwed. And we have to find the light. Like I say in my show, we're going to find the light. We are. Keep focused on the light. Try to be positive. But understand there's a lot of things creeping around the corners, i.e. violence. And like I said to Frank on the fastball, there's a lot of people who are not going to be able to handle a lot of that violence. Not even a third of it, let alone, let's say, if a riot happens in Toronto or a giant riot happens in Montreal to the same scale of what happened in Minneapolis. So it's creeping. It's creeping. That's my look on it. So
not being ready for it and wishing it away, not being prepared for eventualities is your fault. Somebody's fault. I mean, not your fault, but like it's somebody's fault. Like, you need to be aware of what's coming. I mean, if you don't have that wide funnel approach to all potential eventualities, you just haven't done your homework. You need to really, really do it. We've had enough situations here happen, enough close calls that we should be ready to go. So Dave Hemmington wrote, Frank Vaughn raised an issue with this untested vaccine, in quotations. Yeah, he actually mentioned this to me today privately, but I'll talk about it if you want. Is our national blood supply being isolated from people who have received the shot in case things go south and the blood gets contaminated? Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Frank about this privately, but maybe I can, with Sarge's permission, I can
go for it.
I can summarize. So I have witnessed over the last year, and I donate every 8 weeks, and that means it'll alternate between 6 and 7 times every year, depending on when I do 6 and when I do 7, because that's how it works out. I have one, and I don't miss the date without fail unless I'm traveling. And obviously I haven't been traveling for the last year and a half, 2 years. I have watched a steady decline. There's that word again, in the positions and attitudes of the people that are supervising the various Canadian Blood Services clinic that I go to in the city of Toronto, which is at Yonge and Bloor. And I am shocked to see how quickly they have bought into the bureaucracy. When I'd gone in the first time, and when I was taking COVID stuff very seriously, and I would walk around with N95 masks very seriously, when I was taking it very seriously back in March and in April of 2020, I remember relating a story to the woman who runs the clinic at Bloor and Yonge, and I said to her, did you know that this Toronto Sun newspaper was reporting an outbreak of COVID-19 in the building immediately across the street at Bloor Yonge, which is just in the northwest corner? And she hadn't heard about it, and I'd sent her the video. And I think she was astonished to learn her bureaucrats or her superiors had not informed her of the situation. Also, I'd asked her things about, these types of things that Frank had mentioned, like, what about the blood supplies? Are going to be any kind of a knock-on effect? Are you not concerned about COVID? What precautions are you taking? I was taking super precautions and still going in to donate blood. And at the blood clinics, it wasn't like they were taking it sort of blasé, but it wasn't like they do now with all the different protocols that they have in place. So every time I'd go in, something worse would happen. I remember when vaccines started to become a discussion, let's say November-ish, October-ish, all the phlebotomists, the ladies that actually pull the blood from you, they would tell me, do not take the vaccine. I don't care what you do. They were all advising me, all the nice Filipino ladies and Indian ladies and brown ladies and occasional Eastern European lady were telling me, do not take the vaccine. Now, when I went in the last time, the same lady that has been going on like a nice steady decline, basically eating government bureaucracy cake, said to me, did you get your vaccine? I'm like, I really haven't. This is through the mask, obviously, because it's their policy, and I want to donate. It's my sort of my honor code. You should go and get your vaccine. And I'm like, okay. And then on the sotto voce, I asked one of the phlebotomists, I go, is she forcing you to get vaccinated? Do you have a choice still whether you want to get vaccinated in this clinic or not? She goes, no, nobody's forcing us. Some of the phlebotomists have, but a lot of them haven't. So what I'm trying to say is like they make it up as they go along. It's just the policies are constantly evolving and morphing, and I don't even, and so now the question that Frank asked was, what if the blood supply is tainted because it's mRNA, it's messenger RNA vaccine that's actually tinkering with your chromosomes, and so obviously it's going to produce some really interesting bloodborne effects that people that have pure stock blood, like the equivalent of the 99.9% pure silver as opposed to the 92.5%, 75%, 92.5 sterling silver, or even worse grades, like my blood would be at a premium, whereas those bloods might be contaminated. We had a massive blood contamination issue in this country, I think in the 80s, was it? Somebody want to remind me? And they had to actually purge the system. That's what led to Canadian Blood Services going through the reforms that it had. So that was
it was 81, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 1981 that happened.
So that's Frank's contention. He's like, we're going to have another one of those situations, and I'm sure I'm going to go in there. They're going to have a new policy and a new directive. It's the biggest lust of any newcomer to this country to get a government job. Like, we created a massive bureaucracy so paper Canadians can come to Canada and work in Canada and provide, I suppose, for their families, and then lord it over people that have built this country, and to tell them how they need to be conducting their lives, whether they come in with health unit, diktats and scotch tape and fucking papers, or whether they barge into your church, or whether they barge into your barbecue, or they barge into your toy store, or whatever. Fuckers that come to this country that have gotten an opportunity from Ottawa, I'm saying in this case the capital city, and they come in here and they fucking tell you how to behave. I don't care if you're English, I don't care if you're French, I don't care if you're white, I don't care if you're black, whatever your color, your nationality is. Like, that's not the fucking system here. You couldn't do that in certain countries. You'll never get away with that in Poland. They'll beat the shit out of you in Hungary. They'll beat the shit out of you. Obviously, in Russia, they'd kick your ass, they'd smash your face in, and in other countries too that are normal. I like to think in some parts of Australia, if you try to do that, they'll take a baseball bat and smash your head, and a cricket bat and smash your face in. Sorry for all the violent imagery. I'm just in that kind of mood today. That's kind of, you couldn't do that in other countries.
What would they do in China?
Oh, even more. Yeah, there you go. Like, imagine going in the middle of Shanghai or Beijing or Hangzhou or like, Dalian or Chongqing, any one of the big Chinese cities, or Shenzhen, on the border with Hong Kong, and just go in, you know what? I don't trust the Chinese vaccine. The American one, it's probably better, or going to China and say, you know what? I think China created the virus, like, not America. Imagine, you wouldn't survive. You'd have a lynch mob surrounding you, and you'd have flash mobs surrounding you in 5 nanoseconds flat, and they leave your pulpy body on the road running over by road traffic. It's sickening how they're able to come, like, especially I see that here, Major. People come to this country and they start talking smack against Canada. I'm like, can we take it? Spread the cheeks a little wider. Can you make the bollard a little bit bigger, please?
Well, I remember when they had that big evac there. It was Lebanon when Harper was still prime minister. I don't know if you remember that there, Chris. There are a lot of Canadian citizens that were afraid of what's going to happen in the Lebanese civil war. Right? Oh my God, save us, save us. And a majority of those individuals, they had passports and they had Canadian health cards from different provinces, but they were living in Lebanon for the better part of 10 years. Right? Oh, come and save us. So now you're a Canadian citizen. Well, I've got nothing against being humane and showing humanity to people. But the way I look at that, that's like leaving home and having mom and dad come and pick you up from a domestic.
Yeah. No more dual citizenships, period. Same. No more paper Canadians, as ADM calls them. I really have a hard time with that. You're either a Canadian citizen or you are not. And what's really sad about that quick example is, like, I have buddies in the military that were born in Germany or in France or whatever, because they were their parents were in the military, so they were born in France or Germany, and they had to renounce their German citizenships or their French citizenships, right? Because so they're not even allowed to have a dual citizenship, even though they were born in those countries.
Because their countries don't permit dual. That's why their countries.
Our government made them do that because they were Canadians, they were expats there, but they weren't allowed to keep their citizenships because they were Canadian citizens. Like, so our governments, anyway. I won't digress. Bottom line is, I don't believe in dual citizenships, and certainly Adam and I have talked about this before on my channel, and we talked before too. Certainly, politicians, when you run for federal office, you should not have a dual citizenship. Like,
Well, you should have
why?
loyalty to your host nation for starters. Exactly.
Period. Dot.
Yeah. Well, which brings me to another part of the show. Thank you, Mr. ADM, for bringing this video to my attention. It's our beloved leader and his pseudo wife or ex-wife taking a vaccination.
His
Wait,
beard.
is he married?
I
His
think
beard.
he is.
It's his beard. They
his
call
beard?
it in homosexual terminology his beard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
His
that's the
beard.
term. No, that's
Okay.
the term. It's
I'm not going to ask how you know that, but still, yeah.
because I watched that series on Netflix called Sense8, and they use that terminology there.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just basically you have like a girlfriend that makes you so that you can present yourself to whatever society that looks at that a little bit askance, or you don't want to come out. So you have a beard. It's called a beard, right?
I see.
So
Okay.
Sophie Trudeau, sorry, like I always like to do, I got to do it with my proper accent. Sophie Gregoire Trudeau is just like, remember when Pint Size Cunt said, I just remembered her from that fucking video where she goes, Shan Trudeau, I think means little potato, and his father Pierre Trudeau was Trudeau, which means big potato. You remember that? Fucking cunt. You know?
I do.
Yeah.
Because she was praising it like they were calling him a compliment, but I don't know about you.
No, but sorry. Every time I say that accent, it makes me think of the pint-sized cunt. You know, gotta make that bitch pay rent.
It's that very condescending.
Yeah.
Every time she tilts her head, it's like a dog.
Trudeau. You know, you fucking
Guys,
We'll play the video so you guys can analyze it, and the audience
all
at
know what
home.
a piece of ass Justin Trudeau is. Okay, I mean,
Oh, he is. He is
stunning. You know,
I'm gonna before you play the video, Crusty. I'm gonna tap out, guys. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It was nice being with you. Take care, everybody. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Will do, Chris. Take care.
Okay, Major.
See you, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep your stick on the ice.
So I'll play this video, you guys, and my audience there, please analyze this very carefully and pay attention to every verbal cue in it too. So
okay, you guys, so I'm a registered nurse and I watched that video of Justin and Sophie Trudeau supposedly getting their COVID vaccine, and I could spot this from a mile away, but they made a big error. Actually, they made two errors when they were receiving that shot. So I'm going to review this with you because I don't think that they actually did get a vaccine. I bet you that that needle had a retractable needle on it or something. And here's why. Okay, so notice how she's giving him the injection and she hasn't done any landmarking. And watch what she does here. She gives it with one arm, one hand. She's not even touching his arm and landmarking where his deltoid is. Second of all, there was another mistake she made. She makes the same mistake on Sophie. Look at this. No landmarking. She's just one hand in it in. Nobody does that. You don't give IM injections that way. Okay, this YouTube clip shows you how you're actually supposed to deliver an IM injection into the deltoid, and you'll see that they landmark by cupping their hand over the top of the deltoid. Here are some news clips of people receiving a vaccine via IM injection. And notice how every single one of them, they are landmarking. Sometimes they're not landmarking correctly, but they are landmarking. Nobody is sitting back and sticking that vaccine in like it's a dart. It just doesn't work that way. Look at this. Every one of them. See, that's the proper way to give it right there. And also, did you notice that they aspirated before they injected? Okay, so here's a close-up. So look at this again. Tell me, does that look like how any of them were administered in the other shots that I just showed you? Look, right in like a dart. Zero landmarking, nothing. She didn't aspirate either. Here we go again. Zero landmarking, jabbing it in one-handed, and no aspirating of the needle. She even goes to pull up her shirt sleeve before she gets her Band-Aid. So to summarize, my impression as a registered nurse who is trained in giving IM injections, they made 3 key errors when they were acting out this scenario. Number 1, the injector forgot to landmark the deltoid to ensure that she was giving the injection in the proper spot. Number 2, the injector forgot to aspirate to ensure that she wasn't injecting the vaccine into a blood vessel, which can cause serious medical issues. And number 3, the injector sat back on her chair and threw that needle in like it was a dart, one-handed, didn't even touch them with the other hand, didn't touch the needle with the other hand. It was highly unusual. It was very clearly to me acting. And then Justin and Sophie also forgot to play up their role in the drama when he forgot to squeeze her hand during the fake jab and when she pulled her shirt sleeve up before she got her Band-Aids. So I don't know, you guys, lots of red flags there. I'm just pointing it out. Bad acting, Justin. I thought you were a drama teacher. I'm disappointed. I guess you can't even do that right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Share this message.
So
Yeah,
I just
pretty,
noticed, before we go into the commentary, I just noticed one more thing in that video that I hadn't spotted initially. The IM administrator, the nurse, a phlebotomist, whatever you want to call her, she was so fucking nervous when she took out the dart from the Prime Minister's left bicep that she jostled the tray on the counter. Then, when she removed the needle and apparently disposed of it in the biosecure whatever sort of receptacle, she jostled the tray again. When you're working with a fucking needle that could possibly puncture you through your whatever they call that, nitrate sort of latex there, you want to make sure that that needle is moving very slow so you don't snag it on something.
or
You don't
break
just,
it off. And
you don't move like a fucking roadrunner. I just noticed that too from the procedure, which meant that the whole thing was just one big calculated sort of choreographed fucking piece of theater. Forget about the things that the RN mentioned, which are totally legit. Just the way that it was done. I think that woman who was all fucking masked up and had that shield and the visor on, that woman was pooing. She was defecating. And she was literally shitting her pants because she's like, holy fuck, it's the Prime Minister, and if I fuck this up, it's my job on the line or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just, I just noticed that now anyway.
Well, it just seemed too quinky dink too, because like I've had inoculations, what have you, and she was right with the landmarking, But what gets me, I thought you could never actually administer any kind of needle if you had a tattoo on. Like if you had you like on here, I thought I'll never get a needle here because of my skin. If I need a needle, it's either here or in this area, in the softy part, outside of the tattoo. But obviously, you look at the picture, she's puncturing the tattoo itself because he's got some kind of Thunderbird tattoo or something. I guess his way of showing homage to the First Nations. But it just seemed really like, why were those 2 shots differently than all the other shots that we saw there from the other clients or customers per se, or patients? Yeah, it was odd. Anyway, audience, tell me what you think. Tell us what you think about that, because it just seems really bullshit. I don't know how to say it. Fred, what do you think?
I think Justin Trudeau's tattoo is pretty gay.
Yeah,
That's the
well,
first thing I noticed. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention to what she was saying. I just think his tattoo was looking gay. That's what.
Look, honestly,
I'm joking.
I'm personally not into tattoos, but I'm saying everybody can do whatever they want, and that's completely fine by me. I love everybody all the same, except, well, anyway, let's not go there. But if you're the Prime Minister, at least look dignified, act dignified. Like, maybe you got enough money to take the thing off. Maybe just take it off, get it removed. Like, you don't want to have that on your body. I mean, it brings down the dignity, in my opinion, it brings down the dignity of the office by multiples when that happens. Now, I get the strategy. It's like, no. I'm one of you. I'm a reformed, recalcitrant, fucking enfant terrible. I'm one of these types of guys, and I'm the blackface and schnabbing the hookers and whatever, dropping the pills and fucking snorting the powders and smoking the J's and all that stuff. And now I've cleaned it up. I've cleaned up the act. You know, I got kids. I'm a dad. You know, I got a fucking Harridan for a wife. Whatever, all that stuff. I get it, but take off the fucking tattoo then too. You know what I mean? Just like, excuse my language. I don't mean to people that have tattoos. There's reasons why they do it. I'm just saying, like, it's not prime ministerial. I'm sorry, it's not. You know, I could just imagine like Sir John A. just having like a tattoo. You know, okay, so he had other foibles as well. He was stinking blotto all the time, but that was the era. But I don't know. Anyway, just the whole thing looks like, you know, John, what is it? Like James Dean rolling up your sleeves like a fucking, you know, the wife beater or whatever they call it today, you know, roll up the sleeves. He could have worn like a shirt, the tie,
He could have been a little more presentable. Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck, man? Yeah.
Like he actually gave his shit. But then again, every time that man does something, I don't know. I just don't believe anything he said. Because the moment he disenfranchised that soldier, that veteran that stood up in Edmonton and asked him, you know, what are your priorities? And he says, oh, you're asking for too much, we're able to give. I just lost all respect, not just for him, but for the whole Liberal Party. And
that soldier was so contained, like so
very professional,
contained. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sarge. He's an amputee, yeah.
Yeah.
Like so contained.
Leg. The rest
so
of his
contained. I mean, he's obviously not going to attack the prime minister because the RCMP detail will deck him in 2 seconds. But it's just sickening. Like the emotion was so palpable in that man's voice, and like, you know, you have no idea. Maybe he's got some other effects. It knocked his balls or something like that. He's got some other sort of knock on effect from the detonation of the. I'm going to get this right this time. ED, thank you. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but I always miss this. You know?
But no, it happens. Yeah. I've dealt with people who sometimes misinterpret or, you know, jumble the abbreviations. That's fine. But the thing is, as long as people understand and know that there's some scary places in the world, and there are men and women that want to put their asses on the line for this country. And when you have a leader that talks about diversity and sunshine and rainbows and everyone getting along and one big happy family, and then for him to sit there and do that on national television, like that's a gut check right there.
Super sus. It's super sus. You know, here's a variation on that video. Let's say someone's got to do it, right? So let's say Prime Minister gets the dart jab, but Sophie gets like the landmarking jab, or he gets the landmarking jab and Sophie does it. I mean, I'm thinking Sophie's wearing the pants in the relationship. So I'm thinking I only have this narrow window, so I had to bring my hands closer. So like, thank you. So like, I'm thinking, she would have said to him, look, you fella sucker, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get vaccinated and I'm not. So here's what they're going to do. You're going to instruct them to swap, you know, hocus pocus the needles so that they're going to do that little thing to me. And then you're going to get, you know, I mean, I can even imagine a situation where it's completely empty or like a placebo solution. Maybe it's just like some saline or whatever. So they got the jab, you know, it's like, you know, get the water in there, knock it out, make sure there's no air bubbles or whatever. I don't know, whatever medical trick they used. But she would have said to him, you're getting the jab. I'm not. She's going to dart me and she's going to landscape you. But both of them right there, like right in the frame there, that's your evidence right there. Both of them had that sort of sham injection there. I mean, if that's not apparent to Canadians, you know what, but I like to think just people that understand that it's a bunch of theater, but just because they hate conservatives, because for them it's a dirty word, for them it's just a pejorative of pejoratives, they'll take it. They're like, I know he's like, I mean, if you sit these guys down over a pint or two, Sarge, they'll probably tell you, I know he's a scumbag. I know he's a racist. I know he likes grabbing chicks' asses, you know, random chicks' asses because he thinks he's privileged because he's a Trudeau. But he's the devil he's the devil that I know, not the devil that I don't. And we're going to vote him in again because at least we know we can contain him. I mean, there's even people that might say that, right? All those old liberals, old stock, like proper liberals, like
Chrétien, like the old John Turners and those guys.
Chrétien, Rat Pack guys, right? They're like, he's a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch, right? So like they might do that kind of triage. Well, that's sickening too.
Every goon has its use on a major hockey team, but sometimes the goons get worn out and you've got to put them someplace else. And I would say Trudeau is nothing but a verbal goon who has an entourage to back him up. And where you live too. And I'm sure, Fred, you've heard a lot of your generation and people a bit older who swooned over Justin when he got elected because he made worldwide headlines, right? Oh, look at this handsome fellow. Look at this handsome fellow. And he what he's doing now.
I went to Europe in 2019. We went to Germany because we have some friends over there. And we went to because I was still in high school, we visited their high school for a day. We went to German school. It was interesting. So anyway, we go in, right, and they're asking us about America and what's Canada like and what's Mexico the basic kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this one chick goes, "Oh, Justin Trudeau, he's so handsome. We love Justin Trudeau. Oh, I love that guy." I was like, "Wow, you don't know what he's about, do you, love? I'm sorry, but he is the worst." I mean, oh man, he's terrible.
Exactly.
But Fred, that's the extent of political sophistication in our era. It's, I mean, if ever the medium were the message, and if ever televised politics, I'll call it televised politics. Of course, it's on the internet as well, but televised politics, if ever it were at its height of heights, it's in the here and the now, where everything absolutely, it's theater on a grandiose level. It's been workshopped and the kinks have been worked out, the sort of the knots in the dough, the kinks in the whatever. It's been worked out and worked over. It's pure. The theater is pure. The delivery mechanism is kink free. Well, sorry, it's not kink free when you talk about the Trudeaus, but I digress. It is actually been workshopped and perfected that you don't, I mean, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's been borne out by facts. You don't even realize that it's happening.
Well, Mark Dietz says, my sisters voted for JT because he and Sophie were so good looking. It would be just like having our own royal family.
Yeah.
Right? So bring out your inner Zoolander and let's pretend, let Royal JT and his royal flushies pretend that they're the monarchy of this country, even though they have no respect for the actual monarchy. But every time I hear people talk about JT being good looking, I think Zoolander, right? Really good looking. Blue Magnum. Was it Blue Magnum or Steel Magnum? Was that his signature look?
How do they feel today, Mark? How do they feel today? Yeah. I want to know how they think about things today. And if they still think the same way today, don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I had a guest on there in the Fastball a few weeks back, Stephen Buffalo, IRC CEO and all-around boss, great guy. And he fell for the charm too back in 2015. He confessed, right? Because, he really believed that Justin was going to do something good for the First Nations in this country. And what has he done except make a mockery of the traditions and the histories, not even looked at the treaties whatsoever, not even touched it, and handpicking his cabinet based on hearsay, if anything, especially when it comes to dealing with the First Nations.
Based on tits.
Yeah. Yeah, tits.
And gash.
Gash. Well, of course. Yeah.
Delta Force.
Call me a big or whatever, right? You can call me a big or whatever, but I really think if there's a male leader, he needs to be masculine. I'm not voting for
a poof.
Joe Biden and
Justin not voting Trudeau for a fucking poofter. Yeah.
Exactly. They're not masculine men, Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau. They're just not.
Well, hang on a sec. Hold on a sec. I'm going to just interject. Biden, in his day, when he was sane and had all of his cards and wasn't shitting in his pants, he was a bully. He was a bully. He was an aggressive and he was a rude bully. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but he's not now. He's just this fumbling old chip.
Fart. Yeah, he's a fucking fart. Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think if you vote for a male leader, they shouldn't be a pushover. I'm not against female leaders and stuff, and we can talk about the whole psychology behind leadership and all this. But if you have a male leader who is that rejective of his masculinity, I have an issue. You should have. I love the Chad meme because it's kind of true. And I think that you sort of need like a Chad to be like prime minister or presidents of countries. Like,
Agreed.
you don't get stuff done with like a pushover pussy kind of guy. 'Cause that's really what Justin Trudeau is.
And Putin and Xi and Bolsonaro
Putin
and
is a Chad, okay? Like, I wish he was my president.
yeah,
And you can call me like whatever you want, like a Nazi, a fascist, whatever. But Putin is much more of a man than Joe Biden and the likes of Justin Trudeau. Like, seriously, that guy?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Putin has more cojones.
they don't have those strictures. They don't have those governors, not governors like governors. Like, they don't have those things that are limiting the extent of their masculine expressions.
Mm-hmm.
They can say what they want. They can be as incendiary or as full on. There you go. Antipodean expression. They can be as full on as they want to be, and nobody will think that is unusual, because that is the male animal especially in Russia or in China. That's the male animal. That's how the male animal behaves. It's only in the pussified Western nations where, in other words, here was the level that we were trying to reach in terms of equality. Now we've gone like the gas dial went like in the negative direction. So like it should have stopped at the center point. Now we just went into deficit territory. Now you have to make up where you've gone. You know what I'm trying to say? Like you've gone completely overboard. Now you got to make up all that territory that you've gone down the pussy hole. Excuse that metaphor. That kind of sounds cool.
That's why Eastern Europe is going to outlast Western Europe and
right.
You know, the
Agreed.
other various Anglo nations. Poland, Russia, Hungary, Estonia, all these nations, right? They are run by masculine men. It's just true, and you can moan if there's an American or a Canadian that why can't we have that? The problem is we've gone down this road back in the 1960s. When we opened the world up to the sexual revolution and feminism, we kind of signed our death sentence to this. Essentially, that's when this started. And you can talk about this. Sure, there's less extreme versions of those two revolutions in terms of like feminism and sexual revolution and all that, sexual liberation. But ultimately, if you want to trace it back, the pussification of the West, not to for lack of better words, it started back then. And I don't want to blame everything on the boomers, but they kind of messed up our nations, unfortunately. So.
Well, I can say the boomers had, I guess you could say, instigated, but it was people our age that promoted it too. Mm-hmm. Like I've told you before in your show, how I lost a position at a base gym because someone was afraid of what I said and they thought their safety was being compromised. Yet they never confronted me about anything. They just, throw you in a kangaroo court. And yet, where I come from, conflict resolution was one of our bread and butter. If a soldier had a problem with another soldier, you sort the F out and get it done with. Lickety split, back to teamwork, back getting the job done. Okay. That civilian conglomerate that was overseeing a lot of things takes people for granted, and it's going to eat itself in the end. It is. And you see examples of that in the media, right? You see examples of that in the music world and even here online too. There are former lefties that are getting chastised left and right, starting to wake up going, okay, what's going on here? Wait a minute. I agreed with you 2 years ago. Now you disagree with me now? What is this? Because I was associated with somebody? So you're absolutely right when it comes to we are being pussified, and we're not finding that real good masculine representation anymore. We're not finding the can-do attitude. Okay. The 45% that JT Potato Puppet wants to promote and getting rid of this whole carbon issue, people still forget carbon is plant food. Okay. Where's this money going to come from? You're going to keep taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing. And then all of a sudden there's not going to be any money. And like you said earlier, Adam, too, the inflation is going to be so sky high, the old wheelbarrow to get a loaf of bread thing. What's going to happen? Then there's going to be a fight in the streets. Then you're going to see the masculinity come out full effing retard, period. So that's where it's coming to. We've got to let go of this idea that, there's so much aggression out there. Well, we got to start being more aggressive to fight these people that want to condemn aggression. Okay. When people go to the freedom rallies and they see Antifa there, fine, instigate a conversation with Antifa. But the moment they start throwing bricks or tantrums or smashing windows,
They need to be
then
thrown on
fine.
the ground.
Then
The
they
cops don't do anything.
exactly. Then you
They-
fight back. Then you fight back. Like I said, I don't want violence. I don't. But the moment I get that little shove, yeah, fuck you, boomer, or whatever term they want to come up with,
Boomer.
the moment
Mate,
you get
you're
that little
closer
touch,
to a millennial than I am.
well, I'm not a boomer. I'm still in my 40s.
Yeah.
You know, our parents were boomers. They're in their 60s and 70s. Some are in their 80s. Okay. But in the same sense, it's a matter of what you're going to fight for and what are you fighting for. I want
really
peace,
think
security, and
Antifa-
freedom. You know?
These Antifa, like, lefty types, you know, I'm not advocating to go out and just, like, start fights with them, but
Yeah.
seriously, if they throw a punch at you, you just shouldn't care. Like, honestly, just they need to be pushed around because they're kids that didn't get hit back in grade school, and they think they're like
Public
so
spanking.
tough. Yes, and okay, you know what's crazy is Elijah Schaefer was talking about this. I reckon it was with was it a Lauren Southern's documentary Crossfire? I forget. But anyway, he was talking about these Antifa people kind of lapping, where they would be carrying around weapons that are totally impractical. Like this one bloke he was showing was like carrying a Desert Eagle. Like you don't need that weapon. It's not going to help you at all in a tactical situation. Like they're idiots, you know. So you know, I'm not saying you should go out and start hitting people, but you know, if they instigate a fight, you know, I mean, you should definitely stand your ground. I think a couple of them need to be dropped, and the rest will run away. That's how it usually works. You know, that's
What was
why they
that
always
situation of Kyle Reckenhouse?
Rittenhouse, yeah, Rittenhouse,
yeah. Rittenhouse in Kenosha, right?
Yeah,
In Kenosha,
I mean,
he just blew the
shot a
guy's arm
pedophile.
right off, right? Yeah.
He shot a pedophile, so I don't really. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't really feel bad for the people he whacked. I'm not advocating to go out and like start shooting people. I really think you should avoid riots if you can. I'm not saying you should just be a coward, but you're better off just letting the cops handle it. Unfortunately, as much as I don't like the cops right now, but in terms of just like not getting in too much trouble. But yeah, like Kyle Rittenhouse. I saw a meme. It was like the last thing a pedophile that gets eaten by a 17-year-old sees, and it's just all these like soy boys just going, just like taking photos of everything. It's so stupid. But anyway.
Well, so that's the thing. I don't want to see that caliber of violence hit our streets, but I also want to see more and more people standing their ground too.
And another thing that irks me about Canada is like all this crap is imported. Like I don't know if Sarge will agree with me, but like all this shit is imported. Like we didn't have clefts to the degree that now we have. Like they've been brought here. Okay, so now we're gonna have the whole argument about they were brought here by design. We're trying to create a situation where we're at each other's throats. That serves the ruling class. That's good that we're so at each other's that we're at loggerheads with each other, because then they can come in and start dividing and ruling and all that stuff, and we can start distracting ourselves from the ultimate designs and agendas. And everybody, if anybody thinks that is conspiracy, I'm sorry, that fucking shit has been borne out by fact again and again and again, and by the fucking hour, not by the day. So we were never that riven here in Canada, and all of a sudden, in the span of like 2 years, we've imported all of this shit ideology, all of this questionable ideology that doesn't find its source in this nation. And now we have to live with it. It's like you gave me the fucking genital herpes, or you gave me some fucking shit that keeps on giving. And no matter what you do, there's no penicillin, so to speak, or there's no prescription that you can take that will prevent you from having outbreaks of this shit. It's like the society's fucking riven. It's just poison from within. You almost want the Muslims to win and impose Sharia law, because at least they'll fucking set things straight and they'll bring things back to the way things used to be, you know, in a way. I know that's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke, but because these fuckers, man, you know, like in cities like this. So like, it's one thing if Toronto were like the capital, but it weren't the biggest city. You work with me here. It's not like if it's just the capital, then I'm like, okay, there's a bigger city somewhere else. They're not going to let this shit take over. But it happens to be like the economic capital and the biggest city and the cultural capital. It's got like 6 different, you know, things that it can claim to fame, and it dictates it's like the giant rudder for this entire nation. Whoever is pulling on the rudder, this nation decides to go. It's horrendous.
Well, that's the thing, and the so-called opposition against our liberal overseers, they're all for what they're doing now too. Even when they passed the budget, they've had 2 votes on it so far. I don't know if they give it the third and final, but the Bloc's all for it and the NDP's all for it because they don't want an election because they want to keep their comfort. And the Queen's opposition is not really doing much. We got a few people speaking out against it, not doing much. And there's not enough Canadians speaking out against the whole issue too. So something's boiling. And I wouldn't use Canada Polly's metaphor, but I will use it all the same. The boiling frog thing. Okay. Now I'm not in the pot. I'm not a boiling frog. I see what's going on. But what can I do? So we have to get out this platform here, get the words out too, get things on the go. We acknowledge it. We see what's happening. And Fred, you see it in the States as well as we see it here in Canada, right? A lot of people want to be left alone. Well, that's the thing, the Western model. So yeah, they probably plan the big Great Reset, but who's going to fight against it and who's going to welcome it?
It's like, go ahead, Fred.
I was going to say, I think unfortunately too many younger generations are just going to capitulate to the Great Reset type deal. They'll just buy it in because there's not enough fighters in my age group. Everyone's too comfortable to, all the stuff we previously talked about. But I think the way the direction of history is not going in a good way. So I hate to be that person that's not optimistic or really pessimistic about stuff. But that's just the reality. The world will get more authoritarian fast, and eventually things will fall apart. I almost kind of have some sympathy for even the anarcho Antifa types, because at least they want to see the system burn down. Because what's the system doing for anyone right now? I hate to be that person that just wants to destroy stuff, but it's like, is the system really worth fighting for anymore? I kind of question what exactly are conservatives conserving now, or what are libertarians helping us out with? Because I don't see any results. We've had these. I'm not saying you guys are cowards or anything, but the current politicians that are the conservatives in America and Canada are just losers. They are. They don't really get anything done.
There's a handful of the Freedom Coalition or the Freedom Caucus. There's a handful of politicians over Canada that are starting to make treadway. This is something should have been done, let's say, a couple of years ago. But in the same sense, they're making treadway. And every one of them is getting penalized by one party or the next or by whatever certain conglomerate for stepping out of place. And it's a start. It's a healthy start. It provides a certain amount of optimism, I would say. It's inspiring me to inquire more too. After the show, I'll be asking them a few questions too. So that's the thing. And it's just a matter of getting out and trying to be as peaceful as possible. Like I've said numerous times, gentlemen, especially on my podcast and here on the Fastball, I do not want to see violence. There are ways that things can be done. It worked for Mahatma Gandhi, who took on the British Empire. And even in the 1940s, the British Empire was still a force to be reckoned with. And he did it, regardless of what went on in his personal life or not. He organized a peaceful resolution to bring independence to a vast nation, and it can be done. And I think that's a great example that we can all learn from, regardless, right? Martin Luther King even said, you judge the content of people's character, a simple thing that we've taken for granted. Now look at the characters out there running the shots. The vying for power. They're not vying for solidarity or unity. They're vying for power in their own little way. And then people like yourself, and Adam, and myself, we get stuck with the bill. Metaphorically, that is. And that's where it gets difficult. I've had debates numerous times. People weighing in my Facebook page, oh, what are you doing asking people for money? It's like, well, I'm trying to run a business here. Technically speaking, we're all doing the podcast thing and this because, okay, we want to make some money at it too. We want to get our words out. Now, why is that now a crime? Why is that a crime? Would you prefer I went to OnlyFans and did a little jiggle? Would that make people happy? Is that the consensus people have to go to now too? And it's just, some people are lost. And what's going to happen, and I've said this before, they're going to start eating themselves out like that snake, the everlasting snake, right? The old TV show, I think, ADM, you remember the show Millennium, right? Their symbol was that snake eating its tail. It's coming. It is coming. In my bones and my soul, I feel that is coming, and there's going to be a revelation one way or the other, religious and social. So that's the thing.
And that's why you need to be aware of all the different possibilities. That's why you need to have all of the different contingencies already laid out and planned out. Like I know Present Company and everybody that watches these shows is fully aware of what's coming down the pike. I'm just shocked at people that still live in that denial phase, which is like they think that this is a blip on the screen. Like we've seen so many historical precedents for this. Mm. This is something that will repeat itself, where people will end up trying to argue themselves and say, like, in many, many, many respects during Weimar, in the tail end, once the Nazis came to power in 1933, people were saying this kind of thing. They were saying, it's just a blip. We live in the most creative, literary, one of the most, if the not most industrialized nation among the great powers, if not on the continent, the European continent. This will pass. These charlatans, these gangsters, these criminals, you name it, to be in the SD or the SA Sturmabteilung and the Gestapo, you had to be either a former crook, a former criminal, or somebody that was affiliated with criminals. To be a guy that was like taking truncheons or bottles or throwing Molotovs during, if it was Kristallnacht or whatever it was, you had to have been a little bit of a ruffian to begin with. A good time boy, a little schnapps down the throat, and just like all of a sudden go to town. We've had historical precedent for that, for people to think that that's not something that can repeat itself, has a lot more faith in the human beast than I do. Unfortunately, we're just designed that way. The inner adversary, if I can describe it as the evil inclination that is like resident within the human being, it's just something that ends up rearing its ugly head every so often. And maybe the cycles are becoming a lot more constricted. They're becoming a lot tighter, as opposed to the long sort of cycles that we used to see, maybe a century ago. Now it just happens a lot more quickly. So bottom line is, if anybody thinks that this is not happening, and if you don't have your P's and Q's lined up, and you don't have your various things prepared in the eventuality of when this shit actually goes to pot, well, you're not paying attention.
No, and that's the sad reality, because it's going to affect the super vulnerable. People that we love in our LTCs, some of our seniors, and Fred, your generation especially. I'm not saying you personally, or let's say your circle of friends, but you've got a level head on you. You're seeing things for what they are. You have a tolerance that surpasses a lot of people I know your age, and it's going to grab you by the nuts, bud. It's starting to tickle me. No pun intended.
Fred's going to do the right. Fred's going to do the right thing, but the problem is Fred's going to be living amongst people that are his level of success and power, physical prowess and power, like his age contemporaries, that are going to be as strong and mighty as him, and he's going to have to fight a massive battle to try to cut through that swath. And he's going to have to work double tough. We'll help him the way we can, but when we're not here anymore, he's going to have to do it and create a new cell, a new movement, so to speak.
Well, that's the thing: simple peace, freedom, security, and democracy. Let you go about your business, and that's to me, that's the right for everybody. I don't care if you're Christian, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're Jewish, I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, brown, whatever color of the week you identify as. I don't care how you identify. Just try to be a good person to people. Nothing wrong with loving your country. Nothing wrong with loving your history or your heritage, but it's how you treat people. And the way I'm seeing people being treated, especially here in Canada, if you're not part of the high school clique, you're treated like shit. And that's just, I got no tolerance for that anymore. Well,
it's not so much the high school clique. It's if you don't have the right utterances. If you if you talk about people from Asia as being from the land of slanted eye, which is something that I like to say very often, that's going to get you into a little bit of trouble. I know Fred's laughing there. It's going to get you into a little bit. I'm trying to make Fred laugh.
There's worse things. There's much worse things you could say.
That's true. That's true.
There's a couple Australian slurs that are for Asian people. I probably shouldn't say on YouTube, but I'll tell you privately. I'll educate you.
We want, thank you. We want the Sarge to continue to have his account, but if you're not making the right utterances, if you don't play the PC game. I remember once I was sitting in a cafe. I used to love working out of cafes. This isn't going to happen anytime soon, especially in this fucking retarded province. But I remember sitting in a meeting of people that I think were working for the school board. It was a group of teachers that were like sitting in a coffee clutch, having some coffees or whatever, sexy coffees. There's like fucking coffee, which is just a fucking cup of coffee, like a dark roast and a little bit of milk or a couple of things of sugar. Like it's one of those, it's one of those, you know what I'm saying? Those fancy coffees with all the drizzle and the shit and the sugar and all the other shit. As I like to call it, the horse shit and the bus tickets, that goes into it. And so they're sitting there, and I remember one guy, I think he was even ethnic, and he was saying he was referring to communities not by their national, like he'd have to use the word community. So it's like the Italian community. No, the Italians, the WAPs, the Goombas,
community,
yeah. Like he had to say like the Somali community, the whatever, the Portuguese community, because he's sitting in a group of people that could rat him out for not having the right for wrong think, or they're so I gotta use that word again. They're so ensconced in their perpetual bullshit. This reminds me of who's going to win the Polar Vortex Award, but I digress. They're so ensconced in their. That's an inside joke, by the way. They're so. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to listen to the crustycanuck.ca/podcasts. crustycanuck.ca/podcasts. It's great half an hour, 45 minutes of crack. Not the one that you smoke, just the one that you laugh at. Anyway.
Well, Hunter Biden smokes. It's just cheese, actually.
Yeah.
Parmesan cheese.
Yeah.
Parmigiano.
I smoked Parmesan cheese.
But anyway,
okay, sorry, I interrupted.
You're in a group of people that have to speak a certain way, and if you don't speak a certain way, you're ostracized. Now, the ostracism 2 years ago or 3 years ago might have been a mea culpa. You have to write a letter. You have to go to some community, do some community service, whatever. You have to, bow down, bow and scrape the whole spiel. Today, it's you're deplatformed, depersoned. You're possibly doxxed. You're possibly the shit's beaten out of you. Probably, like you have your lintels and your threshold and your doorposts smeared with, not with lamb's blood in the biblical example, but in this case with pig's blood. You got like horses' heads and pigs' heads and fucking all awful and animals and shit landing on your doorpost, or whatever. Just your families, like, being like, if you have a certain bad name, you can't go to high school. Your kids are going to poke fun at you, whatever. You're going to get bullied. Like that's where we're at today. So I don't know. Like I'm going to resist that proper speech horseshit for as long as God gives me the power to do so, because the minute you go down that fucking rabbit hole is the minute you lost all sense of autonomy and humanity.
Well, we all have common sense here. We're not going to drop an N-bomb or this bomb or that bomb. We know better than that, right? And I've personally worked with a lot of great people from all ethnicities that I can think of that have displayed kindness, courtesy, and compassion to the best of their ability. So when someone sits there and points a finger at me and says, "Oh, your system's racist," I'll ask them to prove it. Prove it. How is it? Show me where this system is racist and bigoted, and let's you and I try to fix it together. If you can't prove it, then you're wasting my effing time. It's the same thing when you hear about the glass ceiling. Oh my goodness, I'm not getting paid as much as this guy. Well, firstly, are you working the same hours? Are you doing the exact same job? Did you go to the system of higher learning as much as he did or they did or whatever you want to call them, right? That's what gets me. So we're missing that genuine detail. It's almost too that when you talk about the wrong think and wrong speak, it's like, okay, like Stephen Crowder said, how can I be a professional victim today? That's the thing. We have to get rid of that BS. Okay.
And then there's, and then there's also
thing, mate. I got to bugger off because my computer's about to die. So I'll have to,
okay, Fred.
I'll share with you guys later. But
ladies and gentlemen, that was Fred Stockman. You can find him at Anchor FM/Fred Stockman. His podcast is exceptional. Please, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. Thank you for coming again there, Fred. I appreciate that. You are welcome here on the Fastball.
Very much. Yeah.
Anytime.
I'll try to get some of my mates to come out sometime. That'd be great. Some better Aussies than me, better Kiwis than me.
Either or. You're welcome here anytime, Fred. So
cheers, mate.
All right, cheers.
That
was Fred Stockman, ladies and gentlemen. One hell of a guy. Anyway, as you were saying, so we're getting some more comments here, Adam, before we shut this down. Let's see here. From Justin, I worked with a female welder who is paid almost as much, but produced half as much product. Exactly. It's about production, what's marketable. I think we had this chat with Frank there in the fastball in regards to where's the market when you hear female soccer players talking about they're not getting paid as much as their national men's counterparts. And you know as well as I do, because of your background, okay, men's national soccer is more marketable than female national soccer. Now, it's great. Canada's got an exceptional program for the female athletes. Exceptional. Great coaching, great conditioning, great technical support, everything. But the market's just not there.
You know, you have to ask women too. Do women want to play with guys like competitively?
Yeah. Well,
do they?
The
I mean, maybe some do, and maybe some women can kick some guys' asses, but it's not common. I mean, it's a rarity. I mean, do you want to play a rough and tumble game with a bunch of guys where they punch each other? Because they get sometimes it gets out of control.
They get chippy and elbows and shit. Yeah,
fucking cleats up, right? Go into the guy, slide in. Like,
but I've also ref female soccer, and it's just as nasty too.
to their own. Not going to do it with a guy. Because if a guy hits you, he's going to send you halfway pack and knock you 2 ways to Sunday.
Oh, I've had some nice slide tackles. Yeah. And I'd shake my head, going, "Oh, what the hell was that?" In the same sense. But that's the thing. That's what gets me with the whole, this so-called, this marginalization and misogyny. It's like, well, where is it? Where is it? Get out and earn a job like everybody else. Do you think every man that's got a special job?
Look, female porn stars earn more than males do.
Exactly.
There's some recompense, right?
Really.
I mean, so guys can strip and shit at certain bars, but they're not going to make as much money as chicks do at peeler bars. When things were normal, you can go to a peeler bar. Not like now. It's like they're probably going to close those down too. But I'm being ridiculous. But just to say that, it's one thing to state something so incendiary. It's another thing to actually ask the people that are involved in that so-called marginalized industry sector, whatever it is, whether they actually want to do it. Stop giving people shit that they don't want to have. Stop giving them problems that they didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. Just make up as they go along, because they're taught to be professional victims from the time they hit senior high school till they leave university or college, whatever.
Well, it's a power. It's a power. The professional victim class is a power game, and how so? Mm-hmm. It's like if you can delegitimize a guy and make him feel like a shitbag for something that he says that is maybe mildly offensive and or full on offensive or suggestively so, any one of those variations. You've basically stolen his masculinity. He's never going to open his fucking mouth again. And the glee that you have, as a woman that has a kind of power that can, I mean, I know that it's kind of undergone some evolution in divorce court. You can't just have a woman that claims victim and then gets away with it scot-free. But I'm saying in society in general, outside of the courts, all it takes is just a couple of well-placed darts, apropos darts, and done. The guy's done. I mean, that's power. That's power. Some could say it's a victim thing. They're emasculated. Sorry, as victims, they would be the ones in the weaker position. That's not how it works. The guy's actually screwed. He's totally screwed. In some cases, it's a career killer. In many instances, it's a life killer. It's you can drive someone to alcoholism or to suicide by the invective and the censure that he would receive online as a result of something bad. I could just imagine what's his name there, John Gomeshi, at the time, can you imagine the shit that he must have been receiving, or his lawyer must have been receiving?
God,
if he wasn't well insulated from that, or if he wasn't sort of a media personality, who knows what he would have done to himself? He would have.
When they found out when they found at the end that he was innocent of all of these accusations, was there any kind of apologies towards him? Was there
innocent or involved in consensual exchanges of that kind of shit?
It was consensual too. Yeah, and the text and the letters and the gestures and the actions proved it. It was a consensual rendezvous he had. But was there any kind of public apologies towards him for dragging him through the dirt like they did? No, of course not. He's a man. He could suck it up, right? Oh, okay. I thought men were toxic. Interesting, right? Yeah. See, that's the thing. And all these falsehoods and these accusations, you got to have something to stand on. I'm still a firm believer in due process. And it's essential, regardless, even if you 99% know the individual is guilty. Due process, get it out in the open. Let's see what it is. The theater of public scrutiny. Let's see what it is.
Sunlight. You're asking for measured tone, Sarge. You're asking for rational approach, and
Shit, can't have that.
You're thinking, you know what? You're thinking like a campaign man. You're thinking like a military man. Like you're thinking like a man who knows how to make sure all of his everything is enumerated and planned. That's not how this society works. This society is like a blob. It just like rolls towards a target. It's like water that's semi-contained. I mean, it's not completely boundless, but it's like semi-contained. It just rolls over everything. This kind of thing. That's what we're dealing with here. And you can't contain it. Like once you think you got it under control, you've sort of worked on a segment of society. You've tried to like address what you've just said right now. Once you've tried to address like, a glaring lack, all of a sudden something breaks out. It's so hard to contain. It's like you've released the Kraken. It's so hard to put it back into its enclosure. If the Kraken, it was a Kraken in a cave, in the sea, in the enclosure, whatever, it's somewhere, it's in the sea, I think, right? You can't put it back. Once it's out, it's done. It's got to
genie out of the bottle per se.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's the dynamic we have to keep fighting for that light. So we've been at this now about 2 hours, 5 minutes. A great show. Please, audience, if you feel like donating, check out my donations, crustycanuck.ca. This is the Sunday Fastball with my co-host, Adam Daniel Mezei, actor, director, creator, artist, one of Canada's up-and-coming favorite sons, and all-around nice guy. Nice beard, by the way. You're getting that kind of Saudi Arabian thing going on there.
That's right. I'm going deep cover this time.
Are you?
Yeah.
Canada Special Service, eh? Gotcha. Yes. So please, ladies and gentlemen, get your last questions in now before we shut this down for another exciting episode of the Sunday Fastball with you, myself, the Crusty Canuck, and with my compatriot, Adam Daniel Mezei. Tonight's guests, we had Chris Semchuk, and Veterans Veritas advocate, and the ever so knowledgeable Fred Stockman, all the way from Massachusetts, US of A. Right.
I just thought of something, like what I would love to see. It's never going to happen. I'd love to see some gratitude. How so? I'd love to see people that are new to Canada say, I'm so grateful to be here. You guys gave me an opportunity. I was slumming it. We're talking in a good case scenario. I wasn't earning any money in my country. I had no opportunities. I came here. You guys retrained me. You requalified me. Now I can practice a profession. Thank you for that, Justin Mears. Thank you very much.
Oh, appreciate it. Yes. Thank you, Justin. Thank you very much.
And, gratitude. Thank you very much for that. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to do good things. I want to contribute. No, what this government does is it enables people to hold grudges, axe to grinds, and to fling accusations at the natives, not the indigenous people, but like to the born Canadians, to the people that are born and raised here, that have roots here, and to make them to make the born Canadians feel so insecure in their own country that they don't even know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. Yeah. How did we end up in this topsy-turvy state of affairs where people that are born here, raised here, built this place, have skin in the game, roots in this country? How did we get to the situation where everybody's afraid to utter anything out of their mouth? They're afraid to get their lives ruined. They're afraid to get their families split up. They're afraid to lose even just like even a little bit of money. They're afraid to lose anything. They've made, and I have to say, immigration or faulty immigration or paper Canadians have done a huge yeoman's work in making locals extremely insecure. And it's horrible to see. It doesn't get any better from this point onward. If you've already let the pathogen in, apropos pathogens, if you've already let in the poison, you've normalized it. The government of this country, whether it's federal or provincial or municipal, have normalized, I meant to say, this kind of stuff. It's really hard to bust out of that. You literally have to have a collapse. You literally have to have a Greek style, or Cyprus style collapse in order for it to revert or to clean the slate and start again from scratch. It's so sickening that Canadians think that this is fine, like that they think that this is the way that Canada is. Canada's not like this. It is like this, I'm saying, but it's not like this. It's not designed like this.
No, it's designed as a decent democracy too. And, with a bit of a British heritage and American influence, when you think of it, let's say the past 100 years, considering the amount of ties and the allies that we've worked with and the body of work that Canada has contributed to the world. When people ask me, what's it mean to be Canadian? I say, well, okay, the British know-how attitude and the American Coca-Cola, the combination of both, right? And we both equally complement each other throughout the past, I would say the past 200 years, regardless of the Upper Canada Rebellion, regardless of the War of 1812, regardless of all the shit that every empire has tried to do. Look what you have. You've got Canada, you've got the United States, and you got Mexico. The three great countries, as far as I'm concerned.
What we did is we took the British system, we took Anglo-Saxon or Anglophile English style of life, we subjected it to the harsh crucible of the Canadian environment, which can be very harsh in many, many, many regions. We tempered it, we fortified it, we strengthened it, we ran it through its paces, we hammered it on an anvil, and we made it tougher and more robust. So it's like the very best of the British tradition here in Canada, and the French tradition, the French explorer tradition, the tough as nails, French swashbuckling, fording the rivers, whatever, going out there and intermingling with the Indigenous peoples and creating stronger genetic bonds too. Of course, the Métis and other groups. That's what this place is. It's not about, it is about that because that's what's happening, but it's not about handouts and fucking experiments and societal fucking petri dishes and making us feel like we hate ourselves. Like, how do you fucking have a country that can sustain itself for much longer, that is constantly, like, what do they say about the British? What do they say about the UK? The British hate themselves because they've been taught to hate their empire. They've been taught to hate their colonial traditions, which bequeathed so much in terms of values, government systems, laws, common law. We don't have to go there in terms of the whole list. There were issues, naturally. It's a colonial system. There are going to be haves and have-nots, but the British hate themselves, and Canada's pretty much in that. We're in that basket now. We're hating ourselves. We hate ourselves. We think the only way that we can sort of make Canadian stuff more manifest is if we buy into whatever fucking agendas coming out of the UN and people like Klaus Schwab and all, fucking Dr.
I ain't buying it. How about you? I'm not buying it. Not for a fucking heartbeat. And like I've said,
return to sender.
Well, see, that's the thing. And like I've said to you personally, Adam, and to my listeners and fans out there, I will defend this nation to my last breath. Not negotiable. I want you out there to vote, to pay taxes like everybody else. Not ridiculous taxes, mind you, but sensible. I want your kids to go to school. I want you to have a job. I want people to thrive. I want people to flourish. I want people to make their own money again. I don't buy this carbon tax BS for 1 second. I don't buy it at all. We need our fossil fuels to get in the market, but we also need innovations and ideas. So you, the Canadian taxpayer, and other listeners from other countries, especially my Australian and New Zealand friends, to be self-sufficient, create your own, find innovations, share the ideas and the knowledge. Let's start looking at hemp production. Look what you can make from hemp alone. Wow, effing ideas. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will end this at 2:12. Great show, as always, Adam. Always. And to my other guests this evening too, and you, my listeners and viewers out there thank you very much. I'm getting a lot of good feedback via email and via the comments in my videos and podcasts. Thank you. I'll keep rocking. There'll be a new episode hopefully up by Tuesday sometime. And then Thursday, on the Thursday Fastball, I'm going to have Cousin Elle. She has a small channel on YouTube. She is quite the Canadian freedom fighter, and she is a legitimate trans woman. So you will hear from her point of view and her adventures and some of her issues socially, as well as we'll be talking shop and politics. So stay tuned for that in the Thursday Fastball.
And one more comment. I just want to make one more comment. For those of you that don't know, I was suspended. My YouTube account was suspended for a week because I had posted something that was vaccine contrary. So I have decided that I am going to cease posting at all to YouTube, and you can start following me now on alternative platforms, Rumble, BitChute, which I've been doing all along, but just for those of you that don't know, Rumble, BitChute, We have a private Signal group as well. If you want to join our private Signal group called Your Northern Patriots, we'd love to have anybody there. If you want to know what that link is, I can give it to you, or the sergeant can. And of course, Telegram. So, and if anybody follows me on Facebook, they're all public videos. You don't have to be my friend. FYI, if anybody's on Facebook, they're all public videos. All my fast thoughts that I make, you don't have to be my friend. You can just watch the videos on my fb.com/therealadm. So just in case anybody's wondering why I'm not on YouTube, I've had it with YouTube. I've completely had it with YouTube and their BS and their censorious behavior and their thuggish behavior. And most of the good people are already off that platform. I think they've already flown the coop and gone on to better platforms. So just in case anybody's looking for me, I think it's just a sensible choice.
Understood. Okay, will do for sure. Like I say, folks, this has been the Sunday Fastball for April 25th, 2021. Weather is good outside. So go out and have a barbecue, play with your kids, play with your pets, go outside, be active, and question the status quo.
Also do horizontal, vertical, and diagonal
Enjoy
lambada.
your horizontal Olympics.
Yeah.
Dirty bugger. Yeah, dirty, cheeky bugger. Yes, of course, Adam said to plug in his sexual capades there. Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes. Anyway, I have been Crusty Canuck, and with my compatriot here, Mr. Adam Daniel Mezei, we want you guys to, keep your powder dry, keep your pecker hard, right? All that good stuff.
Lock and load.
Lock and load, and do the best you can. Do what you can for your neighbors and friends. Help out your buddies as best you can. Do a buddy check too. These are troubling times. So if someone needs some help, don't hesitate to spend the extra 30 seconds or a minute to listen to what they have to say, and do what you can to help each other out to the best of your ability. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.